Part 54. Being a Bug in a Survival Game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 536. Boss, who is this person? Why are you suddenly targeting him? Fatty's colleague Gucci is following a male prisoner, but the former is still not sure why. As soon as Fatty met Gucci, he was brought to stalk people. As for why Gucci brought the obstructive fat man with him, it was because the latter was extremely lucky and his mission target was eliminated at the beginning. Because it was not clearly stated that the task objective must be solved by one's own hands to complete the task, the panel system judged it to be passed. The bracelet no longer played a role in limiting the fat man's inventory. Not sure, Gucci stared at the figure in front of him, his tone calm. The fat man was confused, not sure what he meant. The man in front looked around and determined that no one was there before walking into a rather secret passage. Silence, Gucci said lightly and followed quietly. Seeing this, the fat man covered his mouth with both hands and followed Gucci with a poop. The man seemed to know where the surveillance blind spots in the prison were. When he came to a surveillance blind spot, the man took out a completely black instrument about the size of a walnut and pressed it against the nearest wall. The instrument started silently and silently released some kind of radio wave. Without disturbing the prison's protection system, this small area was isolated and prevented from detection by all machines. After doing this, the man breathed a sigh of relief. Just when he lowered his head and wanted to take out something, suddenly, "Hey!" A faint, excited and mysterious voice came from behind the man. The man was startled, and a thought flashed through his mind: is there someone there? The man subconsciously turned his head towards the source of the sound, but the next moment, he was greeted by a fist. One punch. The man was almost knocked to the ground. Before the man could react, a kick came right after him, hitting the man in the abdomen with such force that he flew into the wall behind him in an instant. Gucci took a few steps forward and locked his throat with one hand, making the man unable to make any louder noises except for a small whine. "Fen Nan Bei," Gucci shouted in a low voice. The fat man swallowed his saliva and held a large pot in both hands. The fat man gritted his teeth, closed his eyes, raised the cauldron high with both hands, and smashed the man's head several times. Because he was too nervous, the fat man couldn't control his strength, and it became harder every time. By the time Gucci asked the fat man to stop, the man had been completely knocked unconscious and his face was bruised and swollen. Gucci let go of his hand and let the man fall to the ground. "Boss, is he still angry?" The fat man was carrying the pot with a worried expression on his face, as if the brutal person who hit him on the head 7 times in the last second was not the honest-looking fat man like him. Gucci glanced at the fat man, who immediately understood and squatted down to feel the man's breath. Well, he was still breathing. "Boss, he is still alive, he probably just fainted." After the fat man finished speaking happily, he found that Gucci looked at him with a slightly strange look. "Gucci, didn't you knock this person unconscious? Why are you so happy?" The fat man panicked for a moment and said out of breath, "It was not me who knocked the pot." Hearing this, Gucci blinked his eyes and slowly moved his gaze down to the bloody pot. After 2 seconds, his expression returned to its original state. "Well, then wake him up." The fat man was confused. How to wake up? A wake-up call? This, isn't this not good? Being a Bug in a Survival Game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 537. 5 minutes later. The fat man, who had been thinking about where to start for 5 minutes, muttered amen in a low voice, then raised the cauldron and gently woke the man up. The man woke up with a look of pain on his face and his head was dizzy. Gucci lowered his head and took off his sunglasses. His shining purple eyes looked directly into the eyes of the man in front of him, his thin lips parted lightly. "Name, identity, purpose of coming to the island prison." The man struggled for a moment, but soon became as dull as a puppet. My name is Zhang Tianke, and I am a deputy cadre affiliated with the Wenchen organization. 3 months ago, I took over. I received an order from the organization. The organization believed that there was some kind of evil activity against God in the island prison, so it ordered me to lurk in the island prison and find out the truth as soon as possible. What is the Wenchen organization? Gu Qing frowned. This didn't sound like a white force appearing in society. Moreover, in such a highly developed era, there are still people who talk about the theism of disobedience to God. If placed in the real world, at least it is a joke, at most, it is a cancer left by the ancient system. A look of fanatical admiration appeared on the man's face. The Wenchen organization listens to heaven and listens to public opinion below. It is a great and bright pure land. It is always maintaining social order and fighting against the power of evil. Boss, why does it sound a little weird to me? The fat man hesitated and said. Which serious organization acts like a pyramid scheme? Brainwashing. Gucci looked calm and continued to ask, what exactly happened in the island prison? Island prison, this is a devil's cave. The man's face was extremely ferocious, and he waved his hands around excitedly. Every day. The people they take away every day, will never come back. They. Gucci suddenly said, Fen Nanbei, knock him out. Be true to your word. This is an indispensable excellent quality for employees when facing the boss's instructions. The fat man shouted amen again in his heart, then raised the pot and knocked the man unconscious. As soon as the man fainted, Gucci lowered his head. The purple light in his eyes faded a lot, and his face showed a hint of fatigue. Boss, are you okay? Fatty noticed that Gucci was in something wrong and asked quickly. It's okay. Gucci put on his sunglasses again. The fat man took back the blame. Boss, what are we going to do with him now? He is still useful. Gu tilted his head to look at the normally functioning shielding equipment on the wall, and said softly, find Sutingyu and Qin Lin first. But if we knocked him, he would definitely remember it when he wakes up, right? Then. What if we have to be more vigilant next time? The fat man looked worried. It's okay. His memory has been blurred just now. When he wakes up, he can figure out why he suffered a bloody head. So magical, the fat man's mouth swelled slightly in shock. As expected of a boss, awesome. Boss, let's leave quickly. We still have time to find the boss and brother Qin. No hurry. Gucci turned around and walked out. The fat man scratched his head. Why are you not in a hurry? I know who the target of my mission is, so I'll go and kill that person first. Gucci explained simply. Being restricted all the time and being too passive makes it difficult to perform many things. Gucci can now use some professional talents, but it will be very difficult to use them for a long time. Oh, that's it? Fatty felt a little confused after hearing this, but he didn't say anything and followed Gucci out of the area honestly. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 538. Copy time, 22:30. After the 1 hour free time, all prisoners must return to their cells peacefully. Sutingyu was depressed after searching for an hour and finding nothing. It shouldn't be. This fairy has always been very lucky, why can't she find anyone now? After Sutingyu's identity was checked at the edge of the cell area, the bracelet on his wrist was taken off. As Sutingyu walked deeper into the cell, he twisted the wrist that had been wearing a bracelet for a day. After taking off the bracelet, Sutingyu felt that the sense of surveillance had not weakened, but had intensified. If Sutingyu makes any move deemed dangerous by the robot, the surrounding weapons will definitely shoot holes in Sutingyu's body within 0.01 seconds. Hiss. When Sutingyu thought of that scene, he felt extremely sour. After Sutinyu returned to his own private cell and the cell door was locked, the sense of surveillance over Sutinyu disappeared, but there were still some invisible eyes in the dark, staring at Sutinyu all the time. Sutinyu sat on the bed, lowered his head and smelled his own scent. After being squeezed for a day, it was inevitable that he would smell a little bit. Fortunately, Sutinyu didn't sweat easily, so he looked quite refreshed. At this time, a Shoriad appeared from the innermost corner of the ceiling of the cell. A second later, the Shoriad began to sprinkle hot water. Huh? Is this a time to take a bath? But there was no cover at all. Directly opposite the door of the cell where Sutinyu was, there was also a cell, and a male prisoner lived in it. When Sutinyu turned around to look, he found that the male prisoner opposite was also looking in his direction. Since the furnishings in the cell were simple and there was no cover, their eyes directly collided. When Sutinyu caught him peeking, the male prisoner was not ashamed and instead whistled. Then, he took off all his clothes and stood naked under the shower, staring at Sutinyu with frivolous eyes. Sutinyu quickly turned his head with a look on his face. Damn it, the door of some zoo was not closed tightly, and a huge ugly gorilla escaped. Sutinyu didn't deliberately lower his voice, so it was heard by the male prisoner opposite. The male prisoner's face froze, and then he became angry. He wanted to jump over the two cell doors immediately and tear Sutinyu to pieces with his hands. Sutinyu didn't use the Shoriad to take a shower, she just washed her face and hands and feet a little. Bath. Strip off and wash? Sutinyu was not stupid. There are surveillance cameras in this cell at all times, and there is an eye-catching thing opposite. Sutinyu couldn't bear to suffer such a crime. After washing her hands and feet, Sutinyu climbed back onto the bed, covered herself with a quilt, and fell asleep directly. Monitor the room. There is a huge screen on the three walls, and thousands of surveillance images are being played at the same time. And these pictures, without exception, all show real-time monitoring pictures of prisoners' cells. Bring out the surveillance of all young women in the surveillance room. A middle-aged gentleman wearing a suit and leather shoes gave instructions to the robot in the surveillance room. In just 2 seconds, all the male prisoners disappeared. The gentleman's right pupil had a mechanical quality, a ray of light shot out from his right pupil, and then, a virtual display screen appeared in front of him. The pictures played on the display screen were all of female inmates taking a shower in the cell. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 539. The gentleman's eyes lingered on the many beautiful female inmates, and he swiped the surveillance screen to the left or right from time to time. Rowing to the left, the gentleman men stayed longer, and the female prisoners also had better looks and figures. On the right side, the female inmates all have average looks or are in bad shape. Just like selecting goods, sometimes the gentleman stays for too long and will deliberately make some kind of mark. Warden Zhang? What are you looking at? Are you so fascinated? At this time, a joking voice sounded from behind the gentleman. The gentleman man looked back and saw an old man wearing a white coat. But facing the latter, even as the warden, he did not dare to be rude. D'Argu, is today's experiment over? Ha ha ha, I'm waiting for the final result. You don't need me anymore, so you might as well come out and walk around. D'Argu took a few steps forward. When he saw the picture on the display screen, his old eyes that had been squinting became deeper and deeper. I wonder if Warden Zhang has picked out any good stuff. As soon as these words came out, Warden Zhang immediately understood the meaning. There really are. Warden Zhang generously shared his favorite good products. How about this? Well. And this. This is not bad, but the front is a bit small. Warden Zhang directly released what he was most satisfied with. This is a new arrival, a beauty. Only D'Argu has the ability to control it. Ha ha ha. When D'Argu, who thought he was old and healthy, heard this, his smile turned into an old chrysanthemum. Okay, that's it, tomorrow, when I finish processing the last bit of data, please ask Zhang prison door-to-door delivery. No problem, Dr. Warden Zhang also smiled tacitly. For a time, the atmosphere was harmonious. The rest are very good. When my teacher comes, he will definitely like this welcome ceremony. After talking about private matters, Dr. brought up a serious matter. Don't worry, I'll check it myself and there won't be any mistakes. In this regard, of course I trust Warden Zhang's vision and ability. Throughout the night, Sutingyu woke up several times. Sutingyu didn't sleep well, and the feeling of being monitored all the time was always with her. She was not so big-hearted that she could sleep to death. Copy the next day. Another day of squeezing the prisoners. All prisoners are forced to get up at 6 a.m. and go to the lobby to have breakfast. At 6:30, work begins. The task assigned to Sutingyu this time was to milk cows in the dairy shed. It is worth mentioning that the cows here are also very weird. When a female cow is being milked, if a male prisoner touches her, she will show human shyness and excitement. If a female prisoner touches it, she will show extremely obvious disgust and anger, and may even attack the female prisoner. Male cows have no milk, but they need to be fed. If they are fed by male prisoners, they will look disgusted with the cow's face, blowing their nostrils into the sky, and from time to time they will get angry and hump the male prisoner's lower body. But if it was fed by a female prisoner, Sutingyu saw with his own eyes a female prisoner being thrown to the ground by an excited bull cow, licking the saliva all over her body, and doing various indescribable behaviors. Sutingyu's eyes were irritated just by looking at him. The animals raised in this prison are more or less seriously ill. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 540. Copy time, 12:30. The morning's work was over, and Sutingyu stood in front of the sink, washing the smell of milk off her hands with water. Cows have a very strong temper when facing women. The average female prisoner has limited strength and it is difficult to subdue a cow. But Sutingyu had the experience of dealing with hens on her first day. She knew that as long as she did not cause substantial harm to the pasture animals, the surrounding robots would not attack her. Therefore, Sutingyu directly convinced the cows with strength and soon made the cows cooperate obediently to produce milk. During the work, she would also be lazy from time to time, so she was relatively relaxed throughout the morning. How many people were taken away during lunch yesterday? Will some people be taken away this time? Sutingyu thought in her mind as she returned to the lobby. Sitting at the dining table, facing a rich and nutritious lunch, Sutingyu didn't have much appetite. If possible, Sutingyu would rather eat the food in his inventory directly. Sure enough, halfway through the meal, the robot appeared again and picked out 4 prisoners among the many prisoners. Sutingyu looked around. Among the 4 people selected today, they are all female prisoners, and they are also beauties with outstanding figures and looks. One of the women, every inch of skin on her body has been carefully cared for. Looking at her delicate and white appearance, she looks like a girl under 30 years old. In real life, Sutingyu was in the entertainment industry and had seen many actresses who were obviously middle-aged, but they managed to look like they were in their 20s. Judging from some details, this beauty's real age is definitely not just in her 20s, but is very likely in her 30s or 40s. Sutingyu was a little surprised. How to maintain this? If it wasn't for someone like Sutingyu who was born with a youthful physique, it was because of the devilish upkeep he acquired. Wait a minute, this person is much better than most female prisoners in terms of skin luster and complexion. If he stays in prison all the time, even if he has a rich and nutritious meal every day, he will still work hard. Come down and have no cosmetics, how can you maintain a good condition casually? Sutingyu secretly speculated in his heart. If it's not an NPC coming in from a new level, it's a player who just entered the dungeon. Sutingya glanced twice at the place where the woman originally ate, which was numbered M. Today, in the lobby where Sutingya is, all the inmates are numbered J. Archinchi, numbered V, is not here. Wait a minute, it seems to be coming this way. Sutingya caught a glimpse of the woman who was suspected to be a player being brought over by the robot. A door that had never appeared before opened on one wall. According to the route, it happened to pass by Sutingya's table. When they were within 2 meters of each other, Sutingya secretly checked to see if the woman was the player. Of course, Sutingya also investigated the other 3 female prisoners. The song is not over yet, the people are not leaving. Sutingya's pupils narrowed. This woman is really a player. Sutingya glanced at this game nickname and felt slightly regretful. It's a pity that I finally found a player, but it was not my mission target. I haven't seen this game nickname on the list. He shouldn't be a very strong player. Of course, he doesn't rule out the possibility of hiding his strength, although this was not his mission goal. Sutingya still remembered this woman. The face of the ant player. If she met her in real life, she might even have the audacity to ask Sister Faye about her secret recipe for beauty. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 541. After the 4 women were brought in, the door was immediately closed. In the blink of an eye, not even a crack in the wall could be seen. What a pity for these beauties. That's right, if it were left outside, any one of them would be enough for me to play with for 3 years. You still want to play? There are no harmless girls who can come in here. They are all snakes and scorpions. I'm careful to poison you. Several male inmates at the next table exchanged words in low voices. Sutingya listened without expression. Putting aside the weirdness of this prison, based on what Sutingya has seen so far, there is a reason why these prisoners are being held here. Similarly, Sutingya was also curious about whether the person who was taken away today could come back. You must know that there was a player who confirmed his identity. At this time, in the dark and narrow corridor, 4 robots were separated in twos, one in front and one in back, while the 4 women who were brought were walking in the middle. Unlucky, why did I get noticed? Hey! Where are you taking us? 2 NPC female inmates complained, and another NPC female inmate looked weak and pitiful, as if she was frightened by the unexpected situation. If there is no time, the 3 NPCs are crowded together, alienated from the player choosing you. It's not because the 3 NPCs all know each other, it's just the woman's jealousy. Among the 4 women, although Chuzinyu is not the youngest in real age, in terms of appearance, figure, and temperament, Chuzinyu is the most eye-catching one. Chuzinyu flipped the hair hanging down on her chest from time to time, her eyes were surprisingly calm and even leisurely, as she carefully looked at the surface structure design of the entire walkway. If there is any danger ahead, the worst case scenario is to commit suicide first and exit this round of dungeons. Anyway, Chuzinyu has no shortage of game coins. Not to mention 2,000 game coins, even 20,000 game coins are just what you can get. However, this parallel paradise came unexpectedly, and the various occupations and props in it are also very novel. For Chuzinyu, who always likes to control everyone and everything in the palm of his hand, this is a rare pleasure, and naturally he will not let it go. After walking for about 20 minutes, Chuzinyu and others walked out of the aisle. Outside the door, it seemed to be a temporary place to rest. After bringing the people, the 4 robots left on their own, leaving the 4 women looking at each other. After a while, someone came. "My fair ladies, please follow me." The person who came was actually a man. Judging from his dress, he was not a prison guard, but more like a housekeeper's assistant. Chuzinyu's eyes flickered, Her gaze fell on the man in front of her, and the corners of her lips showed a slight arc. Men, stupid creatures. The assistant glanced around and inadvertently looked up at Chu Xinyu. Without any warning, he felt an electric current flow from the tip of his heart, becoming tingling. For a moment, the man looked at Chu Xinyu with a certain emotion. Chu Xinyu's smile deepened a little, and she winked at the assistant with her passionate and seductive eyes. Ahem. After Chu Xinyu restrained her eyes in a good mood, the assistant woke up from a dream and coughed twice awkwardly, as if he was hiding something. Damn it! Why did my husband fall in love with such a beauty? The assistant was filled with regret. Come with me, don't keep me waiting too long. After saying that, the assistant quickly turned around and left, his back looking slightly embarrassed. Seeing this, 4 women followed him. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 542. Copy time, 1400 hours. Sutingyu, who was forced to take a nap, was forced to work in a processing factory. The prison's tight schedule and strict security system left Sutingyu with no clue about escaping from prison. It is impossible to have an absolutely tight prison. Even if it is full of robot guards, the robots will sometimes malfunction. And there are still living guards in this prison. Human beings are not as good as robots. They can only have enough energy to keep them going without interruption. There will definitely be moments of neglect in your work. In tonight's free time, we must find Qin Chi and the others as soon as possible, maybe they will have a way. Also, where is that brother is just a legend. It's too hard to find. While Sutingyu was working, he was thinking about the plan in his mind. During this period, from time to time, prisoners collapsed from exhaustion. Sutingyu glanced around and saw another male prisoner being carried out. He looked like a thin man. No wonder he couldn't stand the high-intensity work. The distance was a bit far, and Sutingyu couldn't find out whether the person was a player. In the past 2 days, whenever he saw someone within 2 meters, it had become a habit to subconsciously check the identity. There are so many people here, so this person can't be a player. Sutingyu didn't take it to heart and continued busy with the work at hand. You can't be lazy in the work of the processing plant. There is one assembly line after another. If you are lazy in this part, it will soon have a chain reaction and attract the attention of the prison guards. When it comes to escaping from prison, there is nothing wrong with keeping a low profile. Several inmates who were exhausted from work were taken to another factory. As soon as he entered, a man who pretended to faint was awakened by the fishy smell inside. When he opened his eyes again, he found that he was thrown on the conveyor belt. On the conveyor belt in front, the prisoner who was transported was shaved off by the machine, and the superficial skin was peeled off, turning into a bloody man. In the end, the bloody man fell into a large grinder, and all his flesh, blood, and bones were crushed into a paste. Finally, bucket after bucket of bloody paste flowed out and the lid was sealed. The robots in the factory send these 2-meter-high cans out of the factory, and the direction of the transportation is a pasture with the sounds of chickens, ducks, cows, and sheep. No. I don't want it, the man shouted out in fear like the other prisoners, and even struggled to escape. But the suspended robotic hand easily subdued the man. A syringe shot out from the palm of the robotic hand and injected into the man's body. Within a few seconds, the man's limbs felt weak, and he didn't even need the mechanical hand to hold him down. He was paralyzed on the conveyor belt, unable to even turn over. He watched helplessly as his hair and skin were being pulled out bit by bit, and finally he was sent into the churning chamber. Crusher. At the same time, a panel suddenly popped up in front of Sutingyu, who was exhausted. Congratulations to player Angel Su. Your mission target has died in this round of dungeon. The system has determined that you have completed your personal mission. Part of the rewards will now be distributed, and the remaining rewards will be distributed after the dungeon ends. Remove the restrictions on the confinement devices on the Angel Su player in this round of copies. All the confinement devices will not have any effect on you. The NPC will not know and will automatically determine that everything is normal. Sutingyu, What happened? Sutingyu looked shocked for a second. Is her personal mission accomplished? Does it mean that the player who said "I'm just a legend" just died? Isn't it so good that she doesn't have to find someone to do it herself? I've never seen it in person, it's truly a legend. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 543. Outside the door of a certain house. A naked female body with twisted limbs, blurred lower body, and the last look of terror on her face was dragged out by the robot. The assistant outside the door glanced at it and waved his hand expressionlessly, indicating to the robot to dispose of the body. After the robot dragged away the body, the assistant glanced at the closed door. It's already the third body, and there's the last woman. The assistant could not help but think of the look Tonkuzinyu had made when picking up someone. Just recalling it, the numb feeling all over his body seemed to have returned. It's a pity, but such a beauty should be able to last a little longer, right? The assistant sighed in his heart. As an assistant, he is very aware of Mr. Gu's hobbies. Every few days, if he doesn't come a few times, Mr. Gu will feel unbearable. The reason why Mr. Gu petitioned to come to this prison to do research 3 years ago was because here, his hobbies were left unchecked and no one dared to object. Usually, when Sir is training the last one, he will lose energy and still have a breath left, but now the last one is a beauty, if Sir's desire is aroused. The assistant was a little worried that he would not be able to follow this time. A little soup. 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 40 minutes. 1 hour, 2 hours, 4 hours. The assistant looked calm at first, then became a little confused, and finally when he thought of something, his face changed drastically and he hurriedly knocked on the door. The door has a password set. In order to prevent someone from suddenly coming in and disturbing Mr. Gu's enjoyment, the password is known only to the person involved and not even the assistant. At this time, he can only knock on the door hard and summon a robot to connect to the robot in the room. Quick! See if something happened to Sir. The assistant anxiously ordered the robot. 2 years ago, there was a woman whose temper was too strong to bear. After Mr. Gu thought she had completely surrendered, he suddenly started scratching and biting her. He accidentally injured Mr. Gu's lifeblood. That day, the woman was thrown into the bear's den and torn into pieces by more than a dozen bears in heat. Since that day, Mr. Gu's temper has become more erratic, especially when playing such little games. His methods have become more ruthless. Time and time again, the assistant couldn't help but murmur in her heart, "Has Mr. been injured?" But on the surface, the assistant dared not say anything openly, and was even more cautious when serving Mr. Gu. 2 minutes later, Mr. Gu in the room finally responded. A robot opened its mouth slightly, a beam of light shot out, and the display screen was suspended in front of the assistant. As for the picture on the display screen, a human head occupied most of the screen, but from the gap at the edge, the assistant could tell that this was Mr. Gu's room. The person on the screen is Mr. Gu's face. What's the matter? Mr. Gu's face showed an abnormal flush, and he seemed to be lying on his stomach, but it seemed that nothing happened. Sir, you have been silent for so long. I am. The assistant quickly wanted to explain. It's none of your business. By the way, 2 dinners will be ready and delivered in 3 hours. After saying this, the screen went black and the picture disappeared. The assistant breathed a sigh of relief, but soon he realized something was wrong. 2 dinners. Could it be? After all these years, there is actually a woman who can survive till night under Mr. S hands. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 544. Copy time, 21:30. After dinner, it was time for free activities. Sutinyu searched around and finally found a small, remote corner without surveillance, and quickly studied the bracelet on hand. After some fiddling, Sutinyu confirmed that the bracelet could no longer restrict the use of the inventory, nor could it be accurately positioned. Moreover, the bracelet could also be used by the player himself. However, Sutinyu looked at the electronic display screen that popped up on the bracelet. There were a bunch of symbols and patterns, and Sutinyu couldn't figure out how to use them. The panel system has simplified the functions of the bracelet into the computer functions of Sutinyu's world, but Sutinyu's computer skills are only enough for her to watch TV dramas and play games online on a daily basis. Can't you take off the bracelet? The biothermal sensor, if you can't detect the thermal sensor, does that mean you're exposed? Sutinyu stumbled and groped around, not without success. The bracelet has a biological heat sensor. If Sutinyu takes it off and the anchor point disappears, the prison's main bracelet control system will detect abnormalities. Then can you put the bracelet on someone else? It doesn't seem to work. The moment you take it off, the positioning signal is completely gone. Can you turn off the biothermal sensor of the bracelet? But where can I turn it off? Seeing that half an hour had passed, Sutinyu couldn't figure out how to turn off the biological heat sensor, so he had no choice but to give up. Let's go find Kikai and the others first, maybe they know how to do it. No one was found last night, and Sutinyu wasn't sure if he could meet one tonight. Go this way? This way? Or this way? Sutinyu stopped and hesitated for several seconds at every fork in the road. Just when Sutinyu was standing in front of a fork in the road for the 5th time, wondering which way to go, he suddenly felt footsteps approaching from behind. Sutinyu turned around in an instant, with a defensive look on his face. But when she saw the person coming, the next second she burst into laughter. Kikai. Woo, I can't even find you. Sutinyu rushed towards him, mumbling a bunch of words in his small mouth. So, I came to find you. Chin-Chi touched Sutinyu's head comfortingly. Kikai, you. Get out of here first. Before Sutinyu could finish speaking, Chin-Chi pulled the former away from the place. After Sutinyu realized it, he gradually noticed the slightly strange and inquisitive looks of the other inmates nearby. For some reason, Sutinyu's expression became a little unnatural. Sutinyu shouted softly, Kikai. Just here, there are few people coming to another new area. Chin-Chi looked at the relatively few people around, turned around, and asked, what's wrong? Sutinyu immediately shook her head, no, no, no. Ah, by the way, my personal mission is completed. This thing has no restrictions on me. As he said that, Sutinyu shook his wrist with a sullen expression, and then talked about his getting something for nothing personal mission. After listening, Chin-Chi said, be a little aggrieved these days and don't use the prison shower to bathe. Yeah, I know. Sutinyu nodded and complained, there is no privacy at all, there is surveillance, and there is a male prisoner opposite me. Male? Chin-Chi's expression changed. Yes, a huge ugly gorilla. Seeing that Sutinyu was just complaining and had no strange emotions, Chin-Chi felt relieved. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 545. Kikai, have you met Guju and Fatty? Chin-Chi shook his head, no. We haven't encountered them yet, so to rule out the possibility of slipping through the cracks, their letter numbers should be from A to E. Chin-Chi was in the same lobby with the prisoners numbered FI today, and did not meet Gucci or Fatty. But Big Fish, I met your friend who I met in real life. Sutinyu looked confused, what kind of friend? Chin-Chi, the person I met in Angel's apartment. You mean, Shan Yu? Sutinyu blinked her big eyes and asked, What is her number? The letter G. Unexpectedly, Shan Yu also came to this round of dungeons. What a coincidence, she didn't even go to participate in the event dungeon. Su Tingyu only sighed a few times, and then no longer felt relieved. After the copy of Angel Apartment, after Shan Yu paid the reward, the two had no other contact. Originally, Su Tingyu had speculated whether Shan Yu would continue to look for her. After all, as a little fairy, she needed good looks and strength. It wouldn't be surprising if Shan Yu wanted to hug her thigh. But Shan Yu hasn't contacted him yet, and gradually, Su Tingyu himself has almost forgotten about Shan Yu. Have you heard? A man fell into the toilet pit last night and suffocated to death. Such a useless way to die. Qin Shi glanced at the prisoners passing by, and there were gradually more people here. Let's go find the others first. Yes, Su Tingyu nodded. Kikai, do you want us to agree on a place to meet next night? Ken. A dark place in a surveillance blind spot. The fat man swallowed his saliva, looked at the unconscious spy Zhang Tianke on the ground, and turned to look at Gucci. Boss, how do you know he will come here again? A psychological suggestion. Gucci glanced at the unconscious Zhang Tianke and said, search him. Oh, the fat man quickly squatted down and reached out to pull out the things hidden on Zhang Tianke's body. Time was tight last night and there was no time to search for various hidden instruments on Zhang Tianke's body. Moreover, even if they were taken away, Gucci and the two of them would not use them. Boss, that's all we found. Here are two more jammers. The fat man gestured to the two instruments in his hands. From the appearance, they were exactly the same as the jammers installed on the wall by Zhang Tianke, so the fat man determined at a glance. I don't know what use these are. In addition to the two jammers, Fatty also found 5 other small instruments with different shapes. Gucci picked up a jammer. Said, wake him up and let me ask. Okay, boss. The fat man took out the pot again. 5 minutes later. Boom. At Gucci's signal, the fat man knocked Zhang Tianke unconscious. Similarly, before Zhang Tianke fainted, Gucci blurred this memory, and Zhang Tianke would only remember that he was wearing 1 shield, not 3. Because, for the other 2 jammers, Gucci and Fatty, who had already learned the specific usage, took 1 away each. Boss, we now have a jammer, and the bracelet has no restrictions. Now, we can escape from this prison. According to the method provided by Zhang Tianke, Fatty shrunk the shield and attached it to his inner clothes. Even if he was jumping around, the shield inside would not fall out. Well, now we just have to wait until we find Su Tingyu and Qin Lin. Gucci responded lightly. There was still half an hour of free time. After receiving the shield, the two left the area.